There is so much to talk about with Billy. He was out sick last week. There was a lot to talk about last week with Billy. Later in Because Miami's Hour, we will talk to Dr. Randall Parkinson, and he will scare the holy hell out of you about the environmental damage that we're doing throughout the globe and in South Florida. But let's start, Billy. You enter an area here, and the people who've been listening to us throughout the pandemic know that there has been an active political movement as part of many real estate scams you will find in South Florida to purposely blight South Beach. We right now are broadcasting from a place that has declared a state of emergency and a curfew because the crowds are deemed unruly, and there have been gunshots several blocks from here several times over the last few days as spring break descends on South Florida. And the Clevelander Hotel itself argued on behalf of let's keep it open late night because spring break is good for the Miami economy. So you make what of what is happening right now in South Beach, which is, again, the wild, wild west that, again, has, this happened multiple times during the pandemic, a state of emergency declared for partying, basically.
They have declared a state of Jim Crow here in Miami Beach once again. 5 months ago, we did a show almost entirely about this, about the real estate hustle that's at play here, thanks to former Miami Beach mayor, real estate hustler, and Jeffrey Epstein pal, Mayor Phil Levine, the current mayor, Mayor Magoo, Dan Gelber, the city manager, Alina Hudak, who has been we had high hopes for and has been an absolute disaster, as evidenced by what's happening outside of this building right now. But it's all a little, I don't want to say it's blown out of proportion, but I think what we're seeing is a whole hell of a lot of pearl clutching. And you know what color those pearls are. Okay, because we've been talking about this, yes, on the show for 5 months, but for 20 years, over 20 years in Miami Beach.
There has been an over-policing of black people in Miami Beach that has a historical precedent that you talk about all the time, but also there's been a militarization whenever black people gather in South Florida that makes traffic impossible and makes black people feel unwelcome.
They're exploiting these images of groups of black people coming to Miami Beach, full stop. Not just the violence, which is rarely broken out, but just images of black people having fun and using that, exploiting that to scare white people. I mean, is basically what we've seen happen. I saw a video of that. The caption read on Instagram, from a highly viral Miami Instagram account.
Only Indeed.
No, wasn't Only Indeed.
Only Indeed is the best news source in South Florida.
The best news, unquestionably. This was another page, and the caption read, "This is why Miami Beach needs a curfew." So it's like a 90-second video. I hit play. Here's what I first see. I see a small group of black women dancing and twerking on top of not a police car, on top of a car right off of Ocean Drive. There's a crowd of people around them cheering, taking cell phone video, making it rain, and I wait because I'm afraid, based on this caption, this is why we need a curfew in Miami Beach. I'm afraid that something terrible is going to happen, something violent. Maybe this is a different angle of one of these shootings.
I don't know which video you're watching, but the last time that there was a state of emergency on South Beach, what I saw was a whole bunch of black people in the street, and then they dispersed, and on the floor, a black man seemed to be having sex with a black woman. That's the video that I saw that declared the first state of emergency.
Right. So I guess this is what I'm getting at.
On Ocean Drive.
What I'm getting at is that, by the way, nothing else happened in this video that I was watching. It was just 90 seconds of people dancing, having a good time, celebrating life. Nobody got hurt. Nobody was getting hurt. It was late night on Ocean Drive. I don't think there should be children out. Like you wouldn't take kids to Bourbon Street at 11 p.m. on a spring break night. And then I realized, maybe the poster was being facetious with that caption, right? Well, let me tell you a little rule we have on social media. There's no mystery in the comments. There is no mystery in the comments. It was just bile and racism and people who had an allergy, a visceral reaction to black joy. It was outrageous. And I'm seeing that all over social media. This idea that, first and foremost, that gun culture is somehow indigenous to black Americans, which is outrageous. The vast majority of school shootings workplace shootings, mass shootings are all perpetrated by white people. That's not saying it's a white problem. It's saying gun culture is an American problem. For years, through Hip Hop Weekend, through Memorial Day weekend, through spring break, for years in Miami Beach, the only gunshots were fired by police officers for many years. Okay? We also have very permissive gun laws in the state of Florida. We have very liberal, ironically, self-defense laws and stand your ground laws. So while there have been a couple shootings last weekend, fortunately, no one was severely injured or killed. Fortunately, it doesn't make the violence any less problematic. But the vast majority of this is not issues that people in the government are having with violence, but it's giving this all-white government in Miami Beach an opportunity to do what I've said they've been trying to do for almost 20 years, which is reinstitute backdoor Jim Crow laws. I feel like we're seeing the same exact thing now before our eyes. This is the best kind of because Miami with Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson. I say the best because Miami because while she was born in D.C., she is a product of Miami, graduated from Palmetto. Her mother, who sat behind her yesterday, in a red dress at some of the confirmation hearings this week, is Ellery Brown, who was my principal, my arch nemesis at New World School of the Arts. We had a relationship like Zach and Mr. Belding on Saved by the Bell at Bayside High. That was our relationship because I was the senior class president, but I was also like the union organizer, right? You know, I would have to go and negotiate. I would be in her office much more frequently than most people.
Nobody needs your bona fides on the principal.
No, what I'm saying is that one thing I remember distinctly, first of all, she thought my name was Billy, because every time I went into her office, she went, now, Billy. Every single time. That's how she would greet me.
More bona fides.
But my most distinct memory of her is talking about her daughter every single time. I got some proud parents. You've got some proud parents. I've never seen a parent prouder of their child than Mrs. Brown, than Ellery Brown was of her daughter. She was at Harvard Law at the time, as I recall, when I was in high school. And she just would beam and talk about her daughter, the honorable judge and probably the future justice on the Supreme Court, and probably one of the most qualified of any of the justices currently sitting on the Supreme Court. And yet we watch a bunch of rich, angry old white men, these degenerates on the Senate Judiciary Committee, hold this woman to a higher standard than they would anyone else, which is exactly what I see with spring break in Miami Beach. I remember growing up, Girls Gone Wild. That was all white girls. What did we talk about white culture with that? We didn't. We talked about, well, it's spring break, girls having fun, maybe their parents need to be more
Fort Lauderdale, Daytona.
Panama City. I mean, you're way, I don't know.
On Tuesday, we saw the official GOP Twitter account tweet out a GIF of Judge Brown's initials, crossing it out, and writing in CRT. That's a hard R on the CRT, by the way. So we know where this is right now. We know where this is going right now. Yeah. This is clearly a dog whistle for racism here. Yeah.
I'm guessing the first draft of that tweet just had the N-word in it. And then they were like, maybe we need to pull the reins back a little bit and just dog whistle it.
Let's segue seamlessly from racism to this week's newest news on police behaving poorly. You sent me a text of a 20-year-old woman whose face was really bloodied and distorted because of the behavior of Miami police officer Miguel Hernandez. And then we have the story as well of Sergeant Carlos Mendez lying to cover it up. So what are the details you can give South Florida here about bad police behavior? And for the record, Billy has, lest you think he's just criticizing all the time without solutions, he has given the textbook for how it is South Beach could be policed here in a way that was friendlier and more tourist friendly and slightly less racist. So it's not just that you're yelling about the problem, but you've said that the police this isn't a very difficult stretch of land to police. It's a very small stretch of land.
It's a small. It is difficult, but there are solutions. The difference is they've done nothing. That's the problem. Or they've done the exact opposite of what they should have done. For example, they reopened Ocean Drive to vehicular traffic. Everybody's thinking, well, that's the opposite of what you need to do. And they're like, no, this is going to solve the problem. What happened? Democracy happened. The people shut it down. Is what happened. They took to the streets. They said, no, this should be part of Lummis Park. This should be an extension of the park. 4 police officers were injured falling off of ATVs or golf carts last weekend. my solutions make it safer, not just for residents and businesses and tourists, but for police officers as well. Nobody wants to see police officers out there getting hurt. What have they done? They've done the exact opposite of what they need to do. There are solutions. There are other areas that you could look at. Look at Bourbon Street. Look at Times Square. Look at Disney World, where you have areas with high concentrations of people who are getting into drink and mischief and imbibing and partying and celebrating, and figure out how to do it better. Instead, do you know that the city of Miami Beach spends more money per resident on policing than 100% of the cities in the United States of America? They spend over $1,100 per resident. They have to. Why? Because there's only 100,000 residents actually in the city of Miami Beach. But on any given weekend, you can triple that. And a third or more of those people are right here in 15 blocks. And as you said, it's not that it's easy. It's that it's manageable, and they fail to do it. It's dead ends. It dead ends on 3 places in water on 2 of them. I mean, it's manageable, but they deliberately failed to do it because, as you said, they're looking to destroy Ocean Drive so that they can rebuild it. You got this historic district where you can't really build up, but they're looking for a way to do that, to create more volume. And it's not to make it better for the residents. It's to screw over the residents. It's to screw over the businesses and the people who make a living in this nightlife and entertainment industry. And what they're really looking to do is create new residents and new revenue streams and new tax revenue by adding, because the only way to build in Miami Beach and to grow is to build up, and you can't do that on Ocean Drive. You can't make it a condo canyon, but they can if they get public sentiment to move in such a way. And what they're doing is exploiting these images to do that. But things aren't going much better over the Causeway in the tech hub that is the city of Miami.
Well, let's talk about this story that I'm presenting to the audience. What are the details that they need to know about the alleged cover-up and the behavior of Miguel Hernandez, a poorly behaving Miami police officer? We have a few of those.
So this is newly released body cam video of an incident that actually happened in November of 2020. So why are we talking about it now? It's because we never would have known about it had Art Acevedo, the now fired chief of the city of Miami, who was fired after he called out corruption in not only the city government itself, but in the police department. And this was one of the incidents that he was referencing and that has actually specifically cited in his federal lawsuit against the city of Miami for behaving like a mafia and removing him from office because he would not toe the company line and cover up the chicanery in the city government. And this incident happened, like I said, 16 months ago. It's outrageous. A police officer arrived at a scene after being called by, I believe, some gas station owners. And in Little Havana, a woman was chilling and smoking out front. I think they were concerned for her. She seemed perhaps a little under the influence. She was behaving erratically. They called the police. The police showed up. She had an attitude. She flicked a cigarette at the police cruiser. This police officer, Miguel Hernandez, gives chase as she walks away. He starts yelling at her. You see this in the body-worn camera video footage. And he starts yelling at her that she's got to come back and clean up his police car. She mouths off. She curses at him. He and a backup officer decide to take her into custody, which they do. She's still disrespectful. She resists. They wind up getting this very petite 20-year-old woman who's clearly not of sound mind and body in handcuffs with her backpack on, no less. They didn't feel she was that big of a threat. They left her backpack on. They didn't think she was carrying a weapon or anything. Incidentally, many of these things are violations of policy, but nonetheless, they didn't take it that seriously. But this guy, you could hear from the tone of his voice, was pretty pissed off about having a cigarette.
About the disrespect.
Yeah.
There's no disputing. Look, there are plenty of people listening to this who think that all of we do here every week is go far left liberal. There's no disputing that she was disrespectful. There's also no disputing that she didn't deserve what happens next. The picture that I saw for being that kind of disrespectful.
They've got her under control. She's acting a fool, no doubt. He puts her in the back of the police car, handcuffed. She tries to push the door open with her feet. Again, this is a petite, lightweight, 20-year-old woman, not of sound mind and body. He's going to kind of get her feet back in the police car, and then she spits. I don't know if on him, but definitely at him. You can hear it. You can kind of see it on the camera. And he snaps. I mean, just hulks out. He grabs her by the throat with one hand, pulls her, yanks her out of the car by her neck, throws her at full force, face first, on the pavement in this driveway of a gas station. And she is knocked right out, unconscious. The backup officer turns around, looks down the ground and goes, "What the hell? What the hell did you just do?" He has the same reaction that all of us have watching the video, to his credit, because the last thing he saw was this woman was under control. And now she's face first on the floor, bruised, bloody, battered, and unconscious, handcuffed. And right away, the spin starts. You have a sergeant who shows up at the scene. He takes the officer's statement. He commits it to a preliminary report. The statement is science fiction, total bullshit, contradicted by nearly every frame of the body-worn camera. And then it just kind of sits around. I mean, internal affairs is kind of called in, and they got to file some. Then the police, the previous police chief, Colina, retires, and then they're kind of without a police chief for a couple of. Nothing's doing. Then the new police chief comes in, and Art Acevedo, and one of his first acts is, can I see some of the cases that are outstanding, some of the things that are open?
For those who don't listen every week to this, Acevedo was brought in to clean up the department, and immediately, over months, very quickly, found all manner of corruption, and then was let go because he did his job a little too well.
And accused the city commissioners themselves of weaponizing the police department and code enforcement against their own political enemies. And they didn't like that. one little bit, they didn't. So 6 months into his tenure, touted as the handpicked selection of Miami Mayor Francis Suarez, the Michael Jordan and Tom Brady of police chiefs in the country, finds himself shit-canned. And this case is part of that reason. This police officer who'd been on paid leave of absence since this incident in November of 2020, the state attorney's office investigates, and they decide that what they see on that video is perfectly kosher and legal, and they let him retire with his full pension, Miguel Hernandez. This is a cop I've seen his IA jacket. It's 48 complaints deep. This is since 2007. This is not one of the good cops. This is one of the bad cops who has a reputation of harassing fellow officers, of harassing citizens, both while he's in and out of uniform. This was a bad guy that nobody did anything about, okay? And finally gets caught on video doing something. The state attorney co-signs it, lets him retire with full pension. So the taxpayers of the city of Miami will be paying this guy for the rest of his life. Take a look at this video and you decide whether or not that should be a thing. And then the sergeant who shows up, an IA investigation is initiated against him and the lieutenant, Rodolfo Bertrand, and Bertrand is cleared, but the sergeant is also forced to retire with his full pension as well. And he would claim that he didn't lie in the initial report, but he was just copying and pasting, his exact words, what the officer told him, and was waiting to hear back from IA and the state attorney's office, who were dragging their feet so he could update his report. My question is, what didn't you see on the video that the rest of the world saw that you couldn't update the report clear as day and say this officer was out of line, violated countless policies and orders from the department? And I would say, if any of us were caught on video or seen by police officers doing what this man did, you better believe we would have been in handcuffs and dragged away on the scene, and rightfully so.
You have mocked Randall and the state attorney's office for doing nothing more than protecting police misbehavior,
Yeah,
and
bad cops.
and never prosecuting police officers. How much worse are we, South Florida, than the rest of the country in that regard, where you're seeing something that's fairly indisputable on video, and we can parse whether or not you should be spitting at a police officer.
You shouldn't be.
You shouldn't be.
No need to parse it.
But I'm saying that what should the punishment be? Arrest should be the punishment for spitting on a police officer.
She was already under arrest.
Not physical, right, but not physical violence. How bad are we compared to the rest of the country?
I don't honestly know that we are that much worse. I can tell you that over the period, Kathy Rundle has been the top cop responsible for accountability of all public officials, not just police. Public corruption, which thrives down here. And you ask yourself why. And the reason is because she doesn't do anything about it. It's her, but because she's a politician too. She runs for office and raises money alongside all of these same clowns.
You can't watch that video though and find exoneration, is what I'm saying. It's not just
Kathy Rundle always can. Her office always can.
It's not just not doing anything. You're You're actively
protecting them,
condoning and protecting what shouldn't be policing behavior.
Her office regularly acts as if they are there to represent not the best interests of the taxpayers or our community, or even the best interest, by the way, of good cops whose job is made more dangerous by the fact that, particularly with the ubiquity of cell phone cameras and, of course, now body cams, these bad police officers come to represent for the country what all of these other officers are doing. I'll tell you, much more often than exposing bad cops, what body-worn camera footage accomplishes is it protects good cops who are being falsely accused by embittered suspects who have broke the law, got arrested. Maybe they don't like the justified use of force that was used, and they say, you know what, I'm going to say this guy did this, that, or the other. Then they watch the video and they go, no, that didn't actually happen. But the point is that Kathy Rundle sees video evidence that contradicts reports, that proves perjury, that proves lies, that proves violence and crimes that occurred, and steps in not just not to punish those officers, but to say, listen, why don't you just retire with your full pension right now? Hey, I got a better idea. Sometimes what they do, people don't talk about this because criminal defense attorneys are scared of that office because they have to wheel and deal with the assistant state attorneys in Kathy Rundle's office. And what they will actually do is if there's a suspect who is falsely arrested and they have a legitimate claim against a police officer or a municipality or department for violation of their civil rights and may want to file a civil lawsuit or pursue criminal charges against the offending officer, Catherine Fernandez Rundle and her prosecutors in her office will actually horse trade with that suspect, with that defendant, and say, listen, we know this is bullshit. We know you were falsely charged. We know this police officer is bad news and committed a crime. But we'll only drop the charges against you if you agree not to pursue a complaint against this officer. How the hell is the state attorney's office acting as if they are the defender, the attorneys from the PBA or the FOP? But they do that all the time as a pattern or practice. And that, in my opinion, means exactly what a former police chief, Art Acevedo, said. The government operates like a mafia.
It's what it sounds like. We will talk to Dr. Randall Parkinson in a few minutes here about part of what it is might have happened with the Champlain Towers collapse. But a former USA Today reporter said that Miami-Dade County, quote, withheld and covered up evidence and, quote, lied repeatedly after the Champlain Towers South collapse in an attempt to discredit her reporting. Your thoughts when you read that were what before we get to Dr. Randall Parkinson?
Not shock. As I say, Florida rarely shocks me, but regularly disappoints me. USA Today and the Miami Herald. In fact, USA Today has a former Miami Herald reporter who's actually working there doing some of this outstanding work, have done just seminal work in investigating the tragedy of the Champlain Towers South collapse. And one thing that we learned just this past week from the USA Today's investigation is that there were hundreds of hours of communications from the Miami-Dade Fire Rescue Team, as you can imagine, in the aftermath and attempted recovery of survivors and eventually recovery of, or I should say, for the potential rescue of survivors and recovery of the deceased. But the Miami-Dade County had been proactively lying to the reporters, trying to belittle and besmirch their integrity and their work. They were withholding public records, and they finally discovered one of the reasons why they had been withholding some of these public records that should have been furnished is that a Miami-Dade Fire Rescue employee, despite the fact that these recordings happening from rescuers at the scene to dispatch and vice versa, these recordings are not only crucial evidence in a criminal and civil investigation and obviously litigation, federal investigation, state investigations, local investigations, and lawsuits, they deleted over 23 hours of those recordings. This is also after a judge specifically ordered the county to retain those recordings. They deleted them. Now, here's the thing. I often cry corruption. I'm the boy who cried corruption, right? Let me tell you right now, more often than not, corruption doesn't start as corruption. It starts as good old-fashioned incompetence. And then what happens, in a panic to over the incompetence, they try to cover up the incompetence, and thus the corruption comes into play. So there's not always corrupt intent. Sometimes it's just a screw-up. And then they go, well, how do we cover our asses here? And you have to use corrupt intent then to do that. And that's what happened here. And I believe this was a legitimate, stupid mistake. The problem is, of course, is now a lot of this material is gone, this crucial evidence, number one. Number two, we have a situation where the incompetence was actually not punished. This employee got a verbal admonition. That's what USA Today reported. They were verbally reprimanded, which means there's nothing in their record over this. I mean, I think a judge should probably drag them into court and put them into jail for defying the judge's order. I mean, that's contempt of court. That's destruction of evidence. Also, it fuels all of the crazy ass conspiracy theories and speculation.
Once you have
about,
deleted video.
Right. So again, while I believe it was unintentional, you have all these crazy people. Like in fact, the mayor of Surfside, this guy, who is also incidentally a slumlord, this Charles Burkett, this guy who was saying we need to investigate the theory that John McAfee once owned a unit here and hid his secret hard drives here, and so the building was taken down to cover up John McAfee. I mean, like
the late alleged murderer John McAfee.
Conspiracy theories, like QAnon bunk. And you have the mayor of Surfside, Charles Burkett, promoting this nonsense, and then you give them this fuel. But honestly, this has been a hallmark of the Miami-Dade County Mayor Danielle Levine Cava's administration. Not corruption, but absolute utter incompetence. Her administration has proven itself time and again to not be up to this task. She has hired some of the worst people. She is surrounded by some of the worst and most incompetent. And in some cases, those people are corrupt. They have not yet corrupted her per se, but she has no idea what she's doing. And her incompetence is dangerous and it's frightening. And I've invited her onto this program repeatedly to talk about these issues, and she has since declined.
Let's get Acevedo. I've been wanting to talk to him for a while, and we've got these open invitations to any of these people, Carollo, Suarez, all of them. If you found everything we just talked about deeply depressing, wait, it gets worse. I am terrified of the expertise of this guest. I am terrified by what we've done to the planet. I am reading every day things that are not covered well enough, like, for example, our poles, North and South poles have reached weather extremes never seen before at the same time. And if the Arctic begins to melt, the sea level is going to rise 200 feet, and all of Miami and the rest is not going to be able to withstand that.
Don't look down.
It is terrifying. And Dr. Randall Parkinson is a coastal geologist who has been studying for 35 years northern Gulf of Mexico, Florida Peninsula, Georgia Bight, Costa Rica, wider Caribbean. And I don't know what he's going to say here, but I think I'm going to be terrified by all of it because climate scientists are saying this is so much worse than even we predicted, and what we were predicting was pretty damn bad. So thank you for joining us. Billy, I don't know what else you want to add to this introduction, but I'm legitimately scared of what this man is about to say.
Well, when you said it wasn't covered enough, I would agree, but Alex Harris at the Miami Herald did a sensational pair of articles a couple weeks ago that featured the doctor, and they are terrifying, to your point. And the headline of one of them was "Threat from Below. Sea rise is pushing up groundwater and flood risks for South Florida." So the point being, not only is there the threat that you can see, i.e. when you walk out your home and you're ankle deep in the sunshine in Miami Beach during king tides, for example, but there is a threat that is unseen, that is invisible, that is happening underneath us here in the porous limestone, in the reclaimed wetlands. And most fascinatingly, Dr. Parkinson did a study in the crater that once was the Champlain Towers South, where 98 souls were lost last summer in that tragic collapse. And what he was able to learn there through this study is what has given us some insight, incredibly, to what's happening. So, Doctor, thanks again for being here. And can you tell us about this study and what it has revealed and why Dan should be more terrified than he already is?
Well, thank you for having me. And yes, when I track climate change, sea level rise, I've been doing that, as Dan said, for going on 40 years. And, of course, I was just horrified at the collapse, and I was monitoring the news with regards to the reasons that it may have collapsed. And it started off with, improper design, improper maintenance, blah, blah, blah. But eventually it got on to, well, maybe this is climate change. Maybe this is sea level rise. And so I started to dig into that, and I looked at the elevation of sea level along the Miami Beach area there with NOAA tide gauges, National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration tide gauges. They have in Virginia Key. I'm sure your listeners know where that is. And I was able to find the elevation of the floor, the basement floor underneath the condominium. And when I looked at sea level rise and its elevation since the building was constructed in 1984 to the present, I found that the elevation of the sea had exceeded that floor something like 300 times a year between the building as construction in 2006 and then thereafter. 3 times that, it's 900 times a year that the sea level itself was higher than the basement floor. And if you then add groundwater, which is floating on sea level, and it's about a foot or two above, thick, if you will, and then the number of times that the building floor was exceeded by water, fresh, salty, brackish, whatever, was half of the year. And this is just something, as was mentioned in your intro here, that, people haven't been really thinking about. They've been thinking about everything that you can touch, feel, smell, and see. But
let me ask,
certainly,
have you yet been able to conclude, or based on your observations, that this may have had an impact on the collapse at all? I ask that because I've been trying to explain to people who don't live in South Florida that our buildings, particularly on the barrier island of Miami Beach, these buildings and structures, they only have water coming at them from the front, the back, above, and below. I mean, effectively at nearly all times, right? I mean, you have the intracoastal, you have the Atlantic Ocean, you have, of course, the tropics and the rain, and not to mention just battering from wind and salt water blowing through the air. And then, of course, you have the porous limestone, you have the reclaimed, what I said, that we reclaim the wetlands, and someday they are going to reclaim us. But have you been able to conclude at all if this played a role, this threat from below, in the collapse of the building?
Well, that isn't my area of expertise, but I did see in the grand jury report that they attributed to what level, but they indicated that this saltwater intrusion in that likely had a role. And I think this is the point, Billy, is that we just don't know. Since Hurricane Andrew, we improved all of our above ground building codes, in terms of how you build something. But there hasn't been, to my knowledge, any significant changes in the codes on how things are done below ground. Now, certainly any new building that is being constructed has the technology to reduce or eliminate for some time the effects of submergence or salt water. There's a lot of technologies that can be developed, but that's just anything new. And if they are, but certainly the older buildings, certainly 1984, there's many of them that have been built in the 60s and 70s. We didn't even know sea level was rising at that time. I mean, people just didn't think about it, didn't know about it, didn't think about climate change, didn't think about any of this. But, when you drive around South Florida, when you drive around in the Miami-Dade area, when you see a canal, that canal was constructed to drain the land, and that water is going into the ocean. So typically when you drive around, I mean, those canals, the water's just a couple of feet below the ground. That's the groundwater system. And when you have sea level rise, the groundwater is rising with that because it's on top, it's floating, it's lighter than the ocean water is. And so you get I was looking at some maps of the groundwater elevations, and I don't know how to do that. But anyway, most of Miami-Dade, the groundwater system is within a couple of feet, 5 feet maybe, of the land surface, and even lower along the coastline. So it's a foot or two below. If you raise sea level a foot, that groundwater is now on the ground. It's permanently flooded, and we're likely to see that by 2050.
Which means we live effectively at or below sea level at any given time of the day. But this groundwater is not just flowing in these canals alongside the land. It is literally underground, right? It is beneath us as we speak, no?
Right. If you were on Miami Beach, okay, if you're just a kid, you're on the shoreline, dig down your little hole you're building there, and eventually it fills full of water, right? That's seawater. Well, the same thing happens on land. If you go up to your favorite bar and you go outside and dig a hole, and you go down 2-3 feet, you're gonna see water. That's the groundwater system, and it's going through that porous material, and it rises and falls with the tides. I was able to show that. So the tides are a couple of feet, so the waters rise and the waters fall, and then there's this long-term trajectory of increasing sea level. So that whole kind of up and down is the highers are getting higher and the lowers are getting higher, and just at some point. Well, we see this with the king tides, that's where water's going to be in 50 years. The king tides are about a foot higher. So in 2050, 2150, the king tides will be permanent.
You are you mentioned that the cause of the towers falling is not your area of expertise, but sea level rise, coastal zone management, wetland sediment, soil accumulation. These are your areas of expertise. The 50 date that you keep putting out there, that you're saying, I have seen climate scientists talking about that as a timeline. Things are really going to change in 3 decades, but it's happening even faster than that, is it not? Like even the most damning of projections, it seems like climate scientists are saying, no, it seems to be happening even faster than we think it is.
Every new report put out by the IPCC or NOAA, there was a recent one that just came out from NOAA, and they update them every year. NOAA does. Their confidence in modeling in that is improving, and I've never seen a projection dialed down. And one of the other things, so as the Earth warms and as the ice sheets and glaciers melt, that water goes into the ocean, but also the ocean's temperatures are increasing, so they expand. And we're seeing an acceleration of about 3 millimeters a year. When the building was first constructed, it's up to 9 or 10 and getting faster and faster. So as you'd mentioned, Dan, it is accelerating. It's not a linear slow. It is getting faster and faster as the whole system is just completely in disequilibrium. And there's I don't see anything that's going to change that through the end of the century. Honestly, I just don't see it. I think we're going to be, by the end of the century, we're looking at 3 feet. Anything that is 3 or 4 feet above sea level today will be underwater.
Dr. Parkinson, I want to ask, because there are people who who don't even believe their lying eyes when it comes to this stuff. I want to make clear that this isn't just based on projections and graphs and maps, and this is legitimate observation that we've all experienced here in South Florida for the 43 years that I've been alive, for your entire career. And most recently, you literally sat and watched and observed a crater in Surfside, and watched water rise and fall with no rain coming from above. So I just want you to articulate that this is what you saw and witnessed and observed with your own eyes here.
Yes, this is there's really no speculation on the elevation of sea level. There is a physical gauge measuring the water as it goes up and down and up and down. I just did a study down. I used Virginia Key, I used Vaca Cut, I used Key West, I used Naples. All four of those tide gauge stations have the rate of sea level rise has accelerated. All four of them, they average about 9 millimeters. When I started my career back in the Stone Age, it was about 2 millimeters a year. We are beginning to see, because it takes time for the Earth's climate, it's got so much sort of momentum in it, but we're at a tipping point here. And the data that I used to talk about the risks to buildings like that are data. There's no modeling, there's no computer algorithms or nothing. This is raw data that we're seeing that supports the predictive models. So the models are not based on just whatever's in the air, they're grounded in scientific observations, and there are longer and longer periods of that. So the modeling is getting better and better and better.
My last question, I want to try to bring Dan's anxiety level down a little bit, because I think we've succeeded in the exact opposite.
Well, what's happened here is basically you guys have made the scenario where I can envision in my lifetime not just buildings collapsing one after another, but South Florida being underwater, period. That if not in my lifetime, soon thereafter, and with the added bonus of, and also this is all happening much faster than we're predicting. So we are even more alarmed than the greatest of alarmists who are using scientific facts to tell me South Florida is doomed.
Well, we grew up in a Miami that was at sea level our entire lives, so it's not going to get higher. It's not going to get higher above sea level. It's only going to get, we're only going to get lower. I mean, gravity is only going to take us down and bring the water up eventually. Right. But my question is, Doctor, as we've established that, this is not, architecture and of course the anatomy of this tragic disaster at Champlain Tower South is not your area of expertise. But based on your area of expertise, and particularly what you've learned with your study at the Champlain Tower South site, do you have any concerns, or do your colleagues who do study these other areas have any concerns about, particularly based on the groundwater observations and metrics, that we have to be worried about, whether they're older buildings or new construction, that this groundwater is going to create some kind of deterioration and perhaps vulnerabilities in new or old structures?
Right. So absolutely. As you can imagine, I've been getting people that are thinking about moving to Florida and Miami Beach, or people that live in Miami Beach, and they're like, what do we need to do? Each building is different. It was, different age, different materials, different designs, etc. But the associations or homeowners need to get a handle on that. What I mean by that is, if you're in a homeowners association, when was the building built? Where are the designs and sort of the structure that supports the building? What are those elevations? What was the frequency of inspection and maintenance? Just basic information that has not been collected and wouldn't have been collected if it hadn't been for the collapse of the tower, until another tower collapsed. But now we're in a period where we got to catch up, and people need to figure out, what is my elevation? What do I have under the ground? When was it made? What does it look like? Do I have any idea what kind of shape it is in? And then what can I do about it?
So basic due diligence is really what.
Well, that's right, which has been avoided. Yeah. People just out of sight, out of mind, sadly. And I mean, it did take the professional community, the scientific community, by surprise as well, in that we were primarily focused on above ground stuff. I mean, the city of Miami-Dade, they're trying to keep all the stormwater moving and anything underground, but that was infrastructure. That wasn't buildings. So this was a bellwether moment, and I know the Florida legislature is now taking up some bills, considering some bills that are going to start to try to develop a more rigorous requirements for inspections and so forth. Who knows how long that will take.
I was going to say, unfortunately, Dr. Parkinson, the Florida legislature had much less important things to do this year.
Well, that might be.
I say this in the most respectful way possible. Get the hell out of here. Just get the hell out of here. You fear monger who is soaked in facts.
Don't look down.
And
Don't look
science.
Down,
I appreciate your time, but I hope to never speak to you again. This is all horrifying to me. I'm glad Corbin can laugh as we all descend into the sea.
Yeah, well, I'm often called Dr. Doom, but I mean, the whole point is to get this information out. So we have discussions like we're doing on your show here. the first thing that has to happen is we can't ignore it.
Nobody's doing it, but people aren't doing anything. They're annoying. They are ignoring a historically conservative science agency that has said it is red alarm, red alert. And everything we've said until now has been an underestimation. And we're still, we'll ban leaf blowers in California by 2025. And eventually maybe we'll stop relying on petroleum. Maybe.
Dan, this is Miami. We don't have reality. We've got realty.
Get out of here, both of you. Get out of here.